Okay, great. Now we're going to shift gears just a little bit, and we're going to talk about the problem. We're going to talk about aquatic invasive species first, kind of give you an overview of the nature of aquatic invasive species, what they do, what the problems are with those, and why we even bother to care to try and keep those out and to control these type of organisms. And then we're going to take and drill down and get to the specifics of quagga mussels, okay? So we'll just go ahead and kick off here. It'll be real simple. We're going to explain what are invasive species, why they are a problem, pathways, how they get here. We're going to talk a little bit about vectors, how they move from place to place once they get here. And I'll give you some examples of some invasive plants and animals, just common ones that are around that actually you've probably seen, some that are in Lake Piru, some that are in other water bodies that are close by, most of them within the state of California. And then we're going to talk about quagga mussels, new invaders, the most recent poster child for aquatic invasive species, okay? So basically, what are aquatic invasive species? What are invasive species, okay? They're basically an organism, plant, animal, fungus, pathogen, all kinds of different type of things that can be introduced into a water body or an area, okay? A lot of non-native species or even native species that get moved from place to place are not necessarily invasive, okay? They only become what we call invasive when they actually become a problem for either the ecosystem they're being introduced into, any particular uses, water uses, recreation, those type of things. When they become a nuisance, if you will, and they're invasive to the point where they become a problem, then they become what we call invasive, okay? And so what's the problem? Okay, it's very simple, okay? Invasive species cost a lot of money to deal with, okay? Up to the tune of $250 billion a year in the United States alone to deal with aquatic invasive species alone. Can you imagine the type of recreational facilities or water delivery systems you could have with that type of money going towards those type of activities rather than going to control or eliminate an invasive species that's been introduced into a water body? That's why these are a major problem. That's why we want to take and make sure that we keep these things out and we put prevention programs into place so we don't take and waste all these dollars on things just to control these, to take and remove weeds. That's kind of crazy. So anyway, so that's the problem. That's why we're trying to deal with it, and that's what we hope to accomplish here today. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about it. Okay, pathways of introduction. Okay, how do they get here? Aquarium and water gardens. People dumping things out, getting tired of them, getting washed out, disposing of them improperly, okay? Ballast water and shipping containers, that's another thing. That's how quagga and zebra mussels got to North America, and probably how they got to Lake Piru as well, into a boat, okay? Live bait and seafood, those type of industries, not a lot of controls in some of the places for that. Intentional introduction of those type of species, Chinese mitten crab introduced into the Sacramento, San Francisco Bay Delta 10 years ago, really kicked off, didn't take, they're still around, but they didn't take off. Landscaping, aquaculture, agriculture, the intentional introduction of non-native species for sport purposes, okay? That's kind of something that was going on in the early part of the century. Kind of tapered off now, but there's still some officially sanctioned non-native sport fish still within the state, okay? So, again, pathways of introduction. Okay, once they get here, okay, how do they move place to place? Okay, this is a big one. This is the one we're really going to focus on today with our prevention and our monitoring programs, okay? We're going to be looking at vectors, okay? How they get here, how they move from place to place. Boats and equipment, that's probably how they got to Lake Piru, okay? They come in shipping crates, weeds with seeds, pets, animals, recreational activities, biologists out there, fisheries folks out there doing their fishy thing, doing that type of thing, moving from place to place without proper prevention and protocols in place. They can, in fact, be moving invasive species from one place to another. Okay? So what are they? What do we have? There's a whole range of different types of critters out there that are non-native and invasive. And you know, some aquatic plants, hydrilla, aquarium plant dumped around, probably dealing with it. Might even have some in Lake Piru. Water milfoil, another one brought over from Asia. Giant sylvinia from South America, lower Colorado River is dealing with that. Actually a little bit in the San Joaquin River Basin as well. And a new one that we're dealing with up in the Central Valley, San Joaquin River Basin, Sacramento River Basin, South American sponge plant. It's another one that's starting to come on and being problematic there. So there's a whole range of those type of plants and things out there. Probably water hyacinth, you probably heard about the issues they're having in the port of Stockton with water hyacinth actually blocking the channel for major ocean-going ships. They can't even negotiate the channels and canals with water hyacinth. So problems there. So what are some of the characteristics of invasive plants? Okay, so they're a plant. So what's the big deal? Okay, well, the big deal is they're a problem. They form dense mats. You can't navigate channels. You can't recreate in particular areas. They clog out marinas. They clog out water conveyance systems. The large accumulations of plant material, as they senesce and die, they deplete oxygen in the water, killing fish. They also form very monotypic type plant communities where you actually have a depletion in invertebrate populations. You don't have the diversity there that provides good food source for bait fish, for game fish fry, things of that nature. It can cause flooding and sedimentation. You have water moving through a system with sediment in there. Large densities of aquatic plants can actually filter that sediment out. That sediment falls to the bottom of the canal or the stream. Sediment collects there. Water conveyance is impinged, causing flooding and all kinds of issues along those lines. So they can be a problem. They can be a problem. Some animals, some critters. New Zealand mud snail, that's a popular one. Trout streams and stuff. Actually, in some of the rivers down here, they're dealing with that one as well. Signal crayfish. They're a native crayfish, but signal crayfish is a non-native, generally brought in aquaculture-wise or as a bait, introduced in this way. Southern water snake, this is one that we're dealing with up in, actually over in Lake Machado, around San Pedro. We did eradication there of the southern water snake. Also up in the area up around Sacramento, in that area too, we're trying to deal with southern water snake as well. And when we did a tour here, part of the technical advisory committee several months ago, I saw one of these along the creek on Santa Clara Creek. So you have them here as well. So if you see one of these, let us know so we can come down and deal with it. So. And then northern snakehead. A lot of people, you probably heard of snakeheads. Aquarium fish released up in the northeast and stuff like that, get into a water body. They're very voracious and they just eat about everything that comes along. So some of the critters the range of critters that are invasive and things that we deal with. Some of the characteristics, okay, of aquatic invasives is the number one characteristic is they have high rates of reproduction. They can move into an area, they can establish, they reproduce quickly, and they basically take over, okay? They have broad environmental tolerances. They're very adaptable, okay? They have relatively flexible life history requirements. Very adaptable, very flexible. They can adapt to a given system, at given environmental conditions very easy. Compete aggressively. They're mobile and they can disperse easily, okay? Mobile as in they're not generally sessile, and they do have a mechanism in which they can be transported through a vector to someplace else, okay? And we'll talk about these characteristics relative to quagga mussels when Carrie presents on the life history. She'll explain why quagga mussels is such an effective invasive. So, new invaders to the United States, quaggas and zebra mussels. 1997 is when they began arriving in the Colorado River and began moving around. So, zebra and quagga mussel, where does the name come from? A lot of people want to know that, so I'll show you. Zebra mussel here, here's a zebra. Quagga mussel here, this is a quagga. Okay, the quagga here is extinct. This is the last known organism or last known animal. Last known quagga, South Africa, early 1900s. Okay, that's how they got their name. As you can see, it kind of looks like a quagga. This has more stripes, lots of stripes, few stripes, not so many. So that's basically where the name came from. Then quagga mussel. So how do you identify a quagga mussel as opposed to a zebra mussel? Well, zebra mussels generally have a flat edge you can take and stand it on its edge, on its side. That's a zebra mussel. If you can't stand it on its edge, relatively rounded, no matter how you do it, unless you lay it flat, it's not going to sit up. So then you have a quagga mussel. But there's other things out there. So to determine whether or not you have what is known as a dreissenid mussel, is these right here. These are called basal threads. Okay, they attach to things. They're the only freshwater mussel in North America that will do so. So if you, similar to the blue mussels out here off the coast, they're attached to pilings and things. Okay, quagga and zebra mussels do the same thing, and they do that with these basal threads. So if you find a mussel and it's attached to something and you have to pry it off and it's got all these little threads, you have a dreissenid mussel, and it is either a zebra or a quagga mussel. Okay, you need to tell somebody. Tell California Department of Fish and Wildlife. They like to know these things. Okay, so there you go. So with that, we're going to take and we've got a video we're going to play for you guys that really defines the quagga mussel issue in the western states. Okay.